Hello, everyone. Come on in.
See Colleen.
Our girl.
I see Benjamin.
While
Some
you guys
familiar.
are coming in, would love to know where you guys are calling in from. Where are you in the world? And my favorite question is, what are you currently drinking? What beverage of choice? We have a coconut water and a coffee. Hydrating and dehydrating at the same time.
One of our panelists might be drinking whiskey. That's word on the street.
We're on the street. You won't know which one it is.
Whoever's the funniest one.
Amazing. And if you are able to, would love to see your faces. That is always the best part, is being able to see who we have. We'll start in a few minutes. But as we're calling in, we have, where do we have? We got New York City. Oh yeah. Go Knicks. Let's go. Did anyone watch the game? Anyone at the game? Everyone
That
recovering
was
from the
insane.
game?
That was the largest comeback in finals history. Down 29 points. That was crazy. Question for anybody out there. Has anybody raised venture capital or
Put
has
a
anybody?
one in the chat if you have raised VC money or yeah, have raised money. And then put a two in the chat if you are currently raising and you are, just starting that raising process. And then put a three in the chat if you have not started raising, but you're starting to ponder raising.
Which one was the one? I got confused. One
One
is
is if you've raised,
okay, cool.
two is if you're raising, three not raised.
And by the way, it's perfectly normal to not have raised venture. Most people never have done that before.
I'll put that in the meeting room chat. There it is. I put one in the chat. Gorgeous. Okay, we are going to start. I'm just going to add people in as we go along. But hello, everyone. We are so excited for this conversation. Long overdue. And this is something that has been a big topic going on both in the news and then also I think in a lot of our own spheres has been around one, raising money, and two, around building a personal brand that then enables you to raise money, right? The landscape has changed a ton over the last couple of years, even the last couple of months, as Kevin will also kind of swindle in on and have some things to say. And yeah, we're going to cover all of that. So keep use the chat, ask questions. We'll do some Q&A at the end. We're probably going to do around, just for everyone have a lay of the land, around 40 minutes of conversation, around 20 minutes for Q&A. We'll be ending at the top of the hour, so make sure to get all of your questions in the chat. Connect with with both Miliana and Benny on LinkedIn, on Hubble. We'll be putting in those links as well as we go along. Any questions, just pop them in and we'll begin. So, again, hello and welcome. I'm Sasha. I'm head of community here at Hubble. I'm super excited to have this conversation. I'm an ex-founder, have raised and have been through that process. And I've also, been building a personal brand over the last couple of years and have kind of really noticed how important it is both having a brand online nowadays and yeah, for everyone who doesn't know, Hubble is a mentorship platform in the marketplace to connect founders like yourselves with experts who have been there and done that. So I'm really excited for this conversation just because we have two insane people to talk about both personal brand and fundraising. So without further ado, Miliana, I'll let you introduce yourself and where you're calling in from as well.
I'm calling in currently from Europe, Serbia. My specialty was change management for enterprise companies and then focusing on personal brand for startups and scale ups since I had a startup before I was a change manager. I come from a small country in the Balkans, so I realized fast that I can have a best idea, but if I'm not connected, I'm as good as dead. I've built a profitable business that couldn't scale due to lack of my connections. So that taught me to think outside of profitability and stuff that is on the paper. For the previous 4 years, I've helped B2B and B2G founders expand, usually in the US market from Europe, but I've also worked with American VCs and American founders who are in boring businesses, say logistics, healthcare, and similar. I specialize in helping founders who are not all about having 1 million followers, but impacting relevant stakeholders for very complex decision-making processes that include a lot of stakeholders. So being smart and relevant in the right room carries a lot more weight than being viral. That's my specialty.
Very cool. Hard to follow Miljana, but Benny Rubinstein, currently speaking from Rio, which was not the original plan. There's a session here at the Web Summit in Rio for entrepreneurs, especially about engagement, and there was a very, very interesting session. My background, I mainly spent most of my career in high tech. I'm a computer engineer by degree, worked for a few companies back in Latin America, like IBM and some big companies. Got my MBA at Wharton and decided to join Microsoft after some time in management consulting. Had a sort of unusual career. I was running startup incubation businesses at Microsoft. So some of the ones who actually worked out well are Microsoft Azure, was always number 6 on the global business development team. And others don't exist anymore. I was part of Microsoft Research on the health solutions group. So my specialty, I guess, is figuring out how to launch products, not on the engineering side, because we have better engineers than I am, but on the reading signals from people, understanding what's not being said in the room that's blocking everyone from making progress. I also built a venture capital fund and a post-accelerator in Latin America with Microsoft and Qualcomm, and really thinking about new ways of helping entrepreneurs as everything is changing, but the VC world hasn't changed, so I think it's about to change soon.
I love it. We got some killers today. I'm going to start off with the big question. I think a lot of people are asking and kind of wondering is how has fundraising shifted over the last couple of years? What have been the biggest, I guess, signal changes that you've noticed from maybe the earlier days to now? And how can founders start really getting ahead of the curve?
I think Benny is better to go here first since he has.
Benny, take it away.
In that.
Sure. So in terms of like what's changing, I mean, I will respect to be very critical of the whole VC world, and that was the reason why I ended up taking that journey. I mean, just to put in context, and I'll address your question. I was obsessed with working for VCs. I thought it was the best job I could ever had in my life. I know a lot of people who are in VC, interesting jobs, but we figured out that particularly in emerging markets, if you're in Silicon Valley, whatever, it's a different story. But emerging markets, the model doesn't quite work. So what I think what's changing is a couple of things. One is the VCs will come with their own personal brand or a company brand telling them we're going to help you like crazy. And, some people actually will help you a bit. But the reality is the way the model is designed is kind of an intelligent lottery where you're just going to distribute checks based on some criteria, which may or may not be super clear. They will make many mistakes, as I made in investments. And at the end of the day, it's a statistics game, right? It's kind of like people criticize large language models because it's a statistical model. So there are some good things about it. For the entrepreneurs, I advise a lot of people, if you don't need to take money from VCs right now, don't. I mean, eventually you get to that phase, but it's something that you want to postpone. There is a lot of complexity for early stage entrepreneurs, and I'm sure Kevin and others here might eventually feel that, which is also the governance piece. Sometimes entrepreneurs want to do their own things, and boards can get on their way. And so there's a lot of complexity. But I think what's changing right now is I spent an afternoon with some group here in Brazil that's building kind of a different model, like a venture studio. And there's quite a lot of different ways to kind of fund and to also compose the teams and also to define the governance. So there's not a simple solution for that. But again, I think the VC world is going to become a lot more kind of a joint venture between the investors and the entrepreneurs than this kind of, I wrote you a check, you owe me your KPIs, and don't show up with bad numbers. So in a nutshell, I think that's it. Of course, there's the whole AI discussion, which we can have later on, and I've been spending most of my life in the AI world, but I think that's also changing quite a lot, the landscape. And to be honest, it can both help and make the lives of entrepreneurs a lot harder in some ways as well.
That's really interesting. When I think a lot of the conversation, even like to peel it back even another layer, is when do you know that you need to raise money? Right. Like in today's day and age, with the accessibility of like angel investors, grants, all these other forms of capital, when when does a founder actually need to raise money? Like, what are some of the signals internally that they can kind of take a look at and be like, ooh, okay, when I get to this point, that's when I can raise. Until then, here are some ways that I can maybe bootstrap it or find other methods. And then a follow-up question I'll ask, just to remind myself, is around how can building a personal brand support in delaying um, funding or make fundraising a little bit easier. So Benny,
Okay.
I'll start with you, and then Miliana, you can take
I'll
that second
definitely
half.
save the personal brand thing for the Jana, but
Mhm.
I think um, again, there's no one single answer. There's so many variables. But we had this discussion here. It was a 1 hour session. We ended up taking an hour and 40 minutes walking out the door talking about it with a lot of entrepreneurs. And my take on that is if you have to remember that money that will come with a price and a sharp tagline. And so you want to use that money in the right time for the right thing. So one of the main things I was discussing here with a group of entrepreneurs is if you are and I understand the constraints many entrepreneurs have, but if you're trying to fundraise in order to prove that your idea or project or MVP, whatever that is, has value, that's probably a very bad idea. I know it's hard to self-fund yourself, but getting money just to prove somebody that your thesis is a worthwhile one to invest when they already invested, it's not the best way to frame that, and you're going to end up in trouble. So I think the best time to fundraise, again, in ideal world, which doesn't exist, but people will make it happen. Good entrepreneurs will be creative. Is you get to a point where without raising any money, you get to show people, look, with any no funding at all, look at what I've achieved. I've got these 3 POCs, I've got this client, I've got this feedback, whatever that you got. And now, man, I want to take over the world. I want to expand this to Tokyo, to Korea, to this, to that, to the Silicon Valley. I need X amount of dollars, and this is what I'm going to do with that. Not because I want to prove that this is great, because this is already great, and I want this to scale. So that's a much better conversation to have. You're still going to get a lot of questions on due diligence, but you're coming in from a position of strength. I got something of value. Would you like to be, a part of this versus help me get out of this madness because I have no money to even build my product. So in a nutshell, I mean, I'm oversimplifying it, but I think that's kind of how you get to a point where the timing for the money and the story you're telling is a really interesting and people will be attracted to you versus just run away from you, come back when you have something to show me.
My turn,
And then
huh?
Jenna will tell us about personal brands.
I'm gonna do one follow-up question to Benny, and then we'll move on to that. Michelle has a really good question, which I think is something that a lot of people are wondering. Benny, within the pre-seed landscape, right? We're seeing some of these pre-seeds, especially coming from San Francisco, especially coming from, YC and some of these accelerators. The evaluations are through the roof, the price is through the roof, and what they've raised is astronomical. Like, what are your thoughts on this? What can people start thinking of? And I'm gonna leave that there. I'll have probably something else to say after that.
No, I love the question. And if you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have a very different answer. But just for context as well, I am an LP in 5 different funds. And one of them is in Silicon Valley. It's a colleague of mine was also an ex-Microsoft, ex-AWS, and he runs a fund. I'm an LP in 2 of his funds. One of them is only for Y Combinator. Now, that has a lot to do with brand, of course. The first time he sent me the confidential memos, I looked at it and I said, are you really kidding me? Like, there's like 3 guys with a PowerPoint and this is the valuation. I mean, it's insane. And I was actually quite angry about it. And then I actually joined a few of those SPVs, too soon to know the outcomes in a few years. But for some of them, not for all, obviously, you kind of see, what, you're not totally off. So to get to your point, whether you are, whatever brand you use, whether it's the Y Combinator, or whether it's Stanford University, Wharton, Harvard, whatever it is, clearly it's a signal, right? It doesn't mean anything. You know, people who dropped out of college made billion-dollar companies, but it is a signal, right? You know, the markets like in Israel, for example, you go by the what elite unit in the army did you serve, and if you were in a very sharp unit, then probably you're capable of doing very complex things, especially in cyber and other stuff. So again, those brands, they have a value. Of course, it's just one side of the coin. As I said, you could still have somebody with that brand and go down the hill, or you can have somebody with zero brand that will do that. But again, we need to get the point here is we need to make decisions with a very incomplete set of information. So any data point will help. It's not that one that would make my decision. I'm not going to invest in it because you're in that combinator, but certainly wouldn't hurt to see that. But also, I'm paying a lot more money for that brand, so maybe I prefer to find somebody who's not there, who would qualify to be there and doesn't think he needs to be there, which is the reverse selection, as we call.
Do you think it's skewing what pre-seed is? This is both, yeah, Kevin, even for you as well, for you and Benny to discuss. Like, do you think this type of stuff and the focus on brand, and this will be a good tie-in also from John at the very end. Do you think that this overemphasis on brand in some ways is actually skewing what a pre-seed looks like in 2026 and beyond?
Want me to take this?
Take it away.
Well,
I think maybe even before even answering this, I think something that everybody may have found super valuable. So I've helped raise like 5 million over the last year for Hubble as the CEO. And any CEO's job, like part of it is raising money. And you basically have three core jobs, right? You set the vision of the company, you hire great people. And the last thing is you don't run out of money. Raising money is not fun. I've never had a day because you're getting rejected a lot and you're basically selling, right? So this is not the place you really want to spend your time. You want to talk to your customers, you want to build your product. This is the fun stuff. But if you don't have any money, it's going to be really hard to build a sustainable company. And so maybe one thing I was just thinking about, and I'll try to cover this in 3 minutes and then pass the mic, but just thinking about, okay, pre-seed, how do we structure, what is the right structure and approach and framework to raising a pre-seed round? And I'll just share kind of what's worked with me being a founder almost 9 years. So first, what I would do, everybody, is I would actually not talk to any pre-seed investors. I would skip them altogether. I would go set 3 to 5 seed stage meetings. Okay. These people are not going to invest in your company. So when you get a meeting with them, there's literally no pressure, like zero. They're not going to invest in your company. So don't even worry about it. You spend 15 minutes with the person and you treat it like a first date. Where are you from? I see you have invested in these other companies that are similar to me. What is it about this space that you like? Here's a little bit about my company. Here's kind of what we're building. And all of this stuff is just minor rapport building, but you're just trying to leave actually with one question answered. And it's the whole reason you're setting this meeting. And we're going to make a fictitious business name, or let's just say Hubble. Let's use Hubble. I would say something like this to end the meeting. At some point in 2027, summer 2027, Hubble is going to raise a seed round. When we announce that round, what would you need to see to make it impossible to pass? Right? I promise you they're going to give you an honest answer because it's essentially a hypothetical question. There's no pressure. You're going to have 3 to 5 of these meetings. You're going to leave this meeting with this investor. You're going to go back to your team. The GPS on your roadmap is going to be so crystal clear. Like, guys, girls, we want to raise a seed round. This is what we need. Okay. That's great. Now you have this information. Now let's start talking to some pre-seed investors. Okay. And I love starting with just like an old school, I have it right here, old school white sheet of paper. And actually, we're not starting with professional investors. We're going to start with like anybody that you've worked with, any colleagues, anybody that could write like a 5 or a 10K check. And we're going to start with these people. And you're going to write down their names, spend one day, write down all their names. And you're not going to text them. You're not going to cop out. You're literally going to get on a call with them just like this or a phone call. And you're going to say, hey, I started this new company. Do you know about it? If they say yes, you can skip the spiel. If they say no, you tell them what it is. And then you flat out tell them, we just met with 3 seed stage firms. They're interested. They like what we're doing. Once we surpass these 3 milestones, they would be interested in participating at our seed round. We're about 8 months away, or you just be honest, however long you think until you're going to surpass this. We're about 8 months away from surpassing that. Because of this, we put together a pre-seed round of 500K to make sure we have enough runway to surpass those milestones so that when we do announce that seed round, we can close it in 2 weeks. If you want to know more information, let me know. And you just go through the list. I promise you do this, you'll close a couple people. Everybody's confidence will be way higher. Even if you get a 5K check, I'm telling you, you're coming with a different aura to these calls, and people can sense the energy. Once we get through this, now we can start actually talking to some pre-seed professional angels or pre-seed venture funds, because we have a little bit more traction, a little bit more aura. We've pitched our company maybe 15 or 20 times, and every pitch you do will always get better. That was a little bit of a spiel, but I thought that was really important to just kind of lay that out. Anytime you're raising a round, start with the investors ahead of time, one round ahead, because now one question they're always going to ask, oh, what do you need the money for? You know what a terrible answer is? What everybody says, we're going to hire these many engineers, and we're going to hire this designer, and we're going to spend 100K in marketing, and we're going to grow, right? Like everybody says this. How about a better answer? Literally saying, we put this round together because we talked to these other investors. Here's the metrics we need to hit. This money is going to allow us to surpass all of these metrics so that when we go out and raise that seed round, we close it in 2 weeks. That's the whole purpose for this round, right? And now the person just isn't believing in you and your team and your product. They're holistically looking at, yeah, do I think Kevin can take Hubble to these next milestones? Because if he does, and if the team does, my investment is increasing because the valuation at the next round is probably going to be higher. And that's a much easier place for them to say yes to than you just throwing out arbitrary hires and growth and marketing money that you're going to spend.
And you suck them into building together because they think they're not alone. It's very good. And it aligns essentially with one of the things that I want to say related to, but I want to answer a little bit of the questions that you previously asked, because it all aligns with like my specialty. So we're essentially now in the red ocean. Before, you first question was, what is the time that you should fundraise now as opposed to before? Before, it was a blue ocean, tech was very young, everything was up for grabs. So essentially you could come with an idea and say, I want to digitize music, and people are going to like, he's probably going to fail, but he's going to make a step one. And maybe if they fail, step two and step three are going to be profitable. Some other companies are going to be profitable. So it was a completely different market, and you were in a blue ocean. Now you're in a red ocean, especially since real politics is getting involved in what we're essentially building. Yesterday, I had a call with one of the accelerators in the region expanding in the US, and they asked me to invest in some of the startups. And I told them the industry that I'm invested in, that is energy, healthcare, and cybersecurity. And they don't have any startups in those areas. And I think those areas are crucial. So it really depends on which ecosystem you are in and the ability to pull it off. What Kevin just said is like a master class in social engineering, but for somebody who lives in San Francisco in America. So smaller ecosystems that are developing, like in Serbia, or I don't know, not Israel and America, which are essentially the most developed in London, have very few VC funds, and they can fundraise inside those ecosystems. But when they get to a seed round, like they get a pre-seed, or maybe they get some grant and they want to raise a pre-seed round, but in America, they have a big problem exiting those existing circles and getting funded by the market that they actually want to get in. So for them, they need to show a lot more than somebody who lives and already has a network built in America. So for them, doing what Benny did, this is what we've done, these are our metrics, and being like kind of pushed into seemingly smaller business that has a shorter timeline to perform, and having that in mind, that it's not going to be like, we're talking about being global and building global brands, and all that is great. I have that type of network, but it took me 4 years to build and moving all around the world. And if you're doing that in parallel with building a business, it's not like, are you going to be able to do that? So being aware of the ecosystem that you come from and your actual capabilities is going to get you faster to a point where you want to be in. So focusing on those metrics and focusing on building actually not only traction, but if possible, profitability, but if not, some revenue, and then tying it back to your potential. If you can get additional money is always a good thing, because what I forgot to mention is that I worked with the World Bank's accelerator for 2.5 years in emerging market. So I've been through 62, I think, startups and their business models, and some of them are quite successful in building houses in LA, let's say. So you get a kind of a sense of what actually scales abroad and what doesn't. So digital footprint can help you in the sense of what Danny said. In my ecosystem, if they tell me that they worked in this company or this sector or this unit, I know what that means and what type of person can be successful. But as we move on globally, it's very difficult to understand what does it mean that this person had, I don't know, they were working for some Indian institute for something. We're not familiar with that market, and we may be missing critical talent. And I think AI can help merge that in the sense of that it can help us make sense of, and leaving digital breadcrumbs can help founders be visible, and not just like for the point of virality, being visible in markets that they want to get to, and reduce that gap of misunderstanding of, oh, but why do I care that you have a degree of Belgrade's university or I don't know which university? And again, that depends of the type of investor that you can get to, because people who are actually worldly, like Benny, Benny is he's definitely the most listening. He's like the best guy to listen and to understand the other side that I've ever met. And he genuinely wants, the only other person that I've met is in the Innovation Fund of Serbia that I work with, that actually wants to understand what is the other side telling them. But you may not be as fortunate to come across Benny. Try, but you may not be. So developed ecosystems can focus on innovation and saying, I found this, I invested in an innovative drug that is supposed to help us fight inflammation a lot more efficiently at the root cause. And I've managed to do that, and now going into personal brand. So this woman who's in charge of this company, I've seen her guest, I think it was a TED Talk or something like that, and they were fundraising, and they were essentially taking even smaller tickets, because right now I don't have large tickets. I don't have that ability to invest, but I wanted to participate. And 2 years ago, that type of company of doing drugs would have never allowed smaller tickets. So you need to understand where the market is going. We are having globalization and nationalization at the same time. And it's like this huge shitstorm that you don't know what is exactly pulling where. But we are seeing businesses that are actually high potential, struggling to get capital, and now they need to focus on crowdfunding or other alternative methods of raising capital, where investors who have not maybe had chance to invest before, but they are not as smart as investors as Benny, they are going to give smaller ticket. But what are the type of signals that you are sending to those people that they need to understand? What are those the same messages? Are they even educated enough to understand if you go about and say, oh, we're doing this and that, and they're like, I don't understand, maybe I have a sick child, or maybe I had an experience with this disease, and I would like to, I have some spare money I would like to put on this. So I think in that sense, the landscape is changing, and you need to decide how you want to crowdfund, how you want to fund. Do you want to crowdfund or whatever? My first investment was in Fathom AI. Fathom, that's how I met Benny. Fathom is an AI note taker, and this guy had no personal brand. He didn't have a personal brand, and I thought that was a plus, because his business is all about logistics optimization and focusing on creating loops inside the product that are going to suck the customers in. So if he has that, he doesn't need to do personal brand. And if he does that, I'm going to read that he's some dickhead who is an egomaniac and spending his resources on stuff that doesn't matter. He focused on the right stuff. And we talked at some point, and he was like, do you think I need a personal brand? And I was like, right now, no. Just focus on piling in the money and expanding your team, as he has a global team like Kevin. He's very smart about getting great people from various parts of the world to do the most efficient job. So and then we come back to the broken trust. In 90s and again in like COVID era, we had ballooning these consulting companies that I've worked for and worked with that digitized essentially government and big businesses, and there was a lot of money in there. So all of this pile of money and making money created trust, and VCs were like, oh my God, let's invest in businesses that are digitizing stuff. So they got money easier, not on the count of being good founders, but because there was a market opportunity there that needed to be seized in a limited period of time. So when that money is gone because various resources and the Silicon Valley Bank and the market and the tariffs and all of it and wars, now founders have something to prove, which means it matters more how you come across as the person who can help take this company from 0 to 1. So digital presence can serve as a bridge. And why do I say that? I come from Serbia, former Yugoslavia, which was torn apart by war. I lived during that time. I worked with the first generation of entrepreneurs. Those people were insane. Banks loaned them money because they knew they're going to find a way. They were like, this is a crazy business. I don't know how you're going to pull it off, but I know this crazy man is going to pull it off. And I think we're kind of going back into that period in the sense of, can the leadership team and people who have skin in the game in this business pull this off or not? And you're going to see a lot more of that as this, I don't know if it's a crisis or is it just market reset progressing. So in that sense, personal brand can help you, but you need to be very smart about understanding who is your target, and sometimes being famous is going to get you, people are going to attack you and take pitchforks, especially now. So like, do you want to be famous or do you want to be relevant in needed circles to get the job done? So it's called you actually need a marketing plan for this. It's part of your go-to-market strategy, and personal brand can help you, but not for every business, not in every period of time, not for every market, and etc.
What are some 3 questions? That was a lot of information.
You were on a roll right there.
That was on a roll. I was like, right, my work here is done. To distill it down for people, what are like 3 questions they can ask right now to figure out if building a personal brand will help them or if it will hinder them? If you were to rapid fire this with 3 questions, what would you say that would be?
What is their business model? If their business model can have those network effects inside the product, they should focus on that. If you can suck in like HubSpot users. And then is your business model, are you in B2B and B2G? And which markets are you attacking? This is like super important. I was in China recently, and they have this closed ecosystem where the state is funding everything. So for them, like they don't even know how to exit that system without the state's help. And in America, if you're targeting America, you need to be visible, otherwise you're dead. And even if you're famous in a slightly cringy way, is better than being flat out unknown. Because America is huge and America is used to that. And also America likes bravado and bravery. And
we love Cluely.
Yes.
Anyone knows Cluely, they're a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
That guy
That's
fabricate his revenue.
Oh, 100%. Like, there's a lot of problems with it.
Are we sure we all love Cluely?
We love the branding that they've built around that. It's like, it. You know it. You know it. I don't know what they do, but you know it.
People on social media create networks effects for you. Say, Hey Rich is like Balkan startup that has a LinkedIn, on top of LinkedIn platform for messaging, and they target marketing people and salespeople who are all the time on LinkedIn chasing jobs or chasing somebody. So essentially, when they post on LinkedIn, those people are on LinkedIn. And they also organize parties, which aligns with their go-to-market because they're poaching people who like to party and their job is to party. So and then tying that all and digitizing it and bringing it back to LinkedIn makes perfect sense. Like it's very logical. And for other stuff, you need to build an exercise and see if it works. Sorry, that's
amazing.
Benny, did you want to chime in?
Yeah,
Benny, go for it.
I just wanted to maybe I like the contrarian perspective. So I worked with Jana. She's really good at what she does and taught me a lot of wonderful things. And everything has 2 sides, right? And I think I wanted just to bring the other side of the story. Yes, there's no question there's value for branding. Disney will have lots of case studies on that. But the reality is, again, I'll share just a very personal story. I got to a point in my career where, I could, be introduced as this guy who worked for BCG and IBM and Microsoft. Wow, big logos, blah blah blah. And at some point, there's a curve where this can help you, but it can also actually becomes, start deteriorating over time. Like, I'm not saying bad things, but like people who are in a multinational for 25, 30 years, maybe they're great people. Most other companies that are not very similar to that corporation will say, I don't know if this person can do something else because it's truly adapted to that habitat. And while you know how to navigate a company like Microsoft or whatever company that is, will he survive in this environment, which is has XYZ differences? And maybe this person is adaptable, maybe not. My point is sometimes the brand can hurt you. So my personal story, just very short, I got to a point where I did a lot of startup incubation business. I had a great career at Microsoft, got many awards for Azure, for other things. And then I said, I'm ready for something else. I've been here for 15 years. I'm ready for something else. And I thought that something else was I really want to either work with startups or be an investor in a venture capital fund. Now, nobody would hire me. And it was this chicken and egg thing, which maybe many people went through in life, which is, well, you don't have any experience in venture capital. Why would I hire you? So, well, if I don't get hired, I cannot get any experience. So it was this whole rat hole. And eventually I got really fed up. And out of a very long story, I'll make it super short. There was this whole discussion at Microsoft about building the Microsoft Ventures team. What would it look like? Would they have equity in companies or not? It was a whole discussion at a very senior level. Somehow I got plugged in. I was on paternity leave. I shouldn't even be working. I went there and spent 12 hours with a bunch of people because I could offer some perspectives. And eventually, I made a sort of a joke. I said, let's pilot it in Latin America. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't work, nobody cares. And if it works, then we bring it to the North Hemisphere. It was kind of a half joke. And that became my life in 3 years. My point of that story was my deal with them was, Benny, you have great traction, Microsoft. We're going to run this as a proof of concept. We don't want to run it as a Microsoft Ventures fund yet. Now, we trust you. But here's the conditions. You are going to resign if you want to do that. You are going to have to give up your badge, your Microsoft credentials, and this and that. You can still call yourself a Microsoft alumni or ex-Microsoft. But this is Benny, CEO of XYZ company. You build the name, the logo, whatever it is. Find your office. We'll help you, but you're sort of on your own. We'll watch you. We'll give you 25% of the funding. You have to find the other 75%. And we'll support you as much as we can, but you're no longer an employee. And that was the deal. The reason I mentioned this story was, well, it did work out well. And I actually got rehired at Microsoft for a very interesting role in the Middle East for digital transformation. But the point is, I wanted, on a personal side, I wanted to prove myself, although I'm not an insecure person, not I'm an arrogant person. But some people actually asked me, and I said, honestly, I think I know the answer, but I can't assure. They said, would you be able to do all these amazing things if you didn't have Microsoft behind you? And then first I said, I think so. And then I said, how do you know? I don't know. So having to build a company, run it, create my own values, my own team, my own whatever it is, still inspired by my experience, but like having a blended set of values and etc. Helped me. So my whole point of this whole story is sometimes having a brand can hurt you because you're hiding yourself behind the brand. Now, who is Benny or who is Miljana? You're not just an employee of a very large company. So entrepreneurs, he ask me all the time, oh, great that you got these awards with Azure. Well, I did internal fundraising. I fundraised $220,000 with exactly the Microsoft to run an event for Azure. Again, we were 6 people with an alpha version of the product. But they said, well, you did it because you were in Microsoft. We are entrepreneurs. Nobody knows our company. And that goes back to their value, which is not just brand. Is I told them, you don't need to have a brand. Your company can be XYZ Bananas in Rio, and you sell, umbrellas for going to the beach. If you have a really solid model and you create value for people, they will use it. Now, if you have a great logo and it's crap, like big companies have also crappy products, then it's worth it. It's easy to say, hard to do, but it is true. So not having a brand sometimes can work towards you and not against you. That's just one thing that I wanted to kind of make
that.
sure I shared.
Thank you for sharing.
Can I chime in? And I forget the original 3 questions, but I'll just kind of answer my philosophy on this overall. Number one, you have to have a good product that solves a problem no matter what. Doesn't matter how big your personal brand is or how many people download the product. If it sucks, no one's coming back to it. And so it's kind of meaningless. But in saying this, why just people here, if you've launched something, like, why are people not using your product? universally, it's because they just don't know about it, right? It's obscure. A tiny amount of people just know about it or have used it. And I think if you sign up to be a founder, you're signing up for like a lot on your plate. And if you can't also build a personal brand while you're growing a business, I would just kind of question you and saying, well, what the heck are you doing with your day? You may need to like wake up a little earlier, or you may need to like cut out, like if you're going drinking or you're going to dinner every night, maybe you just make that 30 minutes instead of 3 hours. Like building a personal brand, it doesn't even have to be, and it wasn't for me, about selling your services. You can just be like someone that's informative, someone that's inspiring, someone that's educational. And what you're going to do is you're building authority and respect in anybody's eyes who read your content. And at some point, if you launch a product or a service, those people that you end up talking to, whether they're customers, investors, other founders, if you're trying to hire other people, you've built up silent credibility.
Yes.
Over time, like them reading your newsletter, even though they're not subscribed to your newsletter, they're just following you. And I promise you, if you do this, and to Gianna's point, like it does depend on if you have a consumer app, yes, maybe a personal brand is even more weighted, more important than if you're doing like some cybersecurity stuff. But overall, it'll never hurt, in my opinion. And anyone who's like trying to do it, start for the first 6 months on just focusing on giving. Do not talk about your product. Do not talk about what you're selling. Nobody cares about your product, I promise you. Nobody wants to hear another person sell anything. Focus on literally, what can I give to people? What can I inspire other founders to do? How can I educate other people in my sort of realm and build up that credibility? And then I promise you, after 6 months, people, even if they're not even liking your posts, they're like, man, this girl, Michelle Costa, I'm looking at you. Yeah. This girl, Michelle, is incredible. She just keeps giving and giving, and she doesn't ask for anything. And then all of a sudden, Michelle comes out of the blue 6 months later with some sort of, hey, I've been working on this project the last 6 months. It would mean the world to me if you guys downloaded it. Right. Look at the conversion on that after you've given for 6 months. So anyone who's out there launching a company, I would strongly urge, and I could talk millions of stories on how it's helped me in my personal growth, how we landed our first investor from Uber as part of our pre-seed round from a LinkedIn post, how our first VC found me from LinkedIn posts and then told his business partner and his fellow GP, hey, you got to meet with Kevin. Like there's been lots of things that have resulted in that personal brand. So strongly encourage everybody, even if it's 10 or 15 minutes a day, you should be talking to your customers more. You should be building your product. You should be focused on that, of course, but set aside 10, 15 minutes and build it.
I love that. I think I'm gonna ask one more question and then we're gonna move into some Q&A. So I see a lot of really good questions in the chat. I think something that's really good, especially I think Johnny, you talked about this around cross borders and how to really build a brand that can transcend borders, especially for like maybe the places that are a little bit up and coming and like untapped in terms of market and in terms of like talent. And I'm trying, Benny. Hopefully this will be a hard question. Where how can someone like a founder really build that trust and build that trust? I don't want to say quickly because right, things do take a little bit of time, as Kevin said, 6 months, 8 months. But how can you maybe 1.25 speed it? And how can you 1.25 speed the trust to build online with someone who has never met them and may never meet them because the relationship is built through LinkedIn and then, calls?
Do you want me to answer first?
Yes, please.
So first of all, there will be in a foreseeable future, the easiest way is to combine offline and online. I have clients usually that I talk to. We just meet at some events. We share notes on what they're doing, what am I doing, and we talk about if they need what I'm doing right now. And they usually say no, not right now. But afterwards, even without a single interaction, 6 months or a year after, when they're ready, they reach out and say, hey, are you accepting clients by chance right now? Because I think now we're ready to do what we talked about. I don't know. So like building that relationship, and that relationship like goes between that moment when you met and the moment when you close. Because usually people tell me about some posts that they noticed, but they never interacted with, or like no like digital trace so far that we know they actually liked it or something like that. So if somebody can combine in any way the ability to hit the road and combine offline with online on their desired market, even if that means like sleeping in a basement and doing it a startup way, 100%, I would totally encourage it, because that will speed you up. But not like going to frat parties if you're targeting cybersecurity executives, you know. You need to go to relevant places where you think those people are actually going to be. And of course, luck can help you, but that can help you if you live in that like ecosystem. The other thing is the content. LinkedIn has changed significantly, and I specialized in LinkedIn in these 3 years, 4 years. When I started building it, content was enough. I would use my change management experience. I was selected by LinkedIn in New York in 372 influencers for their first AI feature, or when the moment when LinkedIn became AI. I was a part of that and provided feedback on some features. And some features got accepted and now they're actually on the platform, which is pretty cool. So essentially, it was very different, and they were able to source me based on my content. And now there's a lot more people, like the crisis, and everybody's afraid of losing their jobs. So everybody's posting. I think combining and not just relying on any network, regardless of where your fan base is, if you're good on TikTok, is the right approach. But still being like, I don't think the quality content is leaving, and like expertise and the ability to convey that you know what you're talking about, and then getting people in your ecosystem or relevant people to support you and create kind of a community is going anywhere. But how do you like do it? It really depends industry to industry, because I worked in logistics with people who are owners of like these huge companies, but they're still family-owned businesses that are in trucking. So those people are not like, they started using LinkedIn and maybe a year ago, but and that's very rudimentary. It all looks like some ad from the 60s where they post their phone number and say, call me, you know? So it really, it really depends industry per industry, but showing up and Kevin saying, having that culture of engagement and interaction and learning is going to help you manage all of your relationships better. Because if you are open to being challenged and learn how to be challenged and learn from it, you're not going to lose your cool maybe when you're challenged by a potential investor who wants to piss you off so they can see how much heat you can take, because people do that. So like that is, I can't give you an exact plan.
You're fine. That's what people book with you. And we're going to go into some questions because I know we have 10 minutes left and I want to be mindful of time for everyone. So you feel free to raise your guys' hand. Keep your questions to one sentence, and please, no context. We can go on the whole life stories. When you ask your questions, please, please, please keep it as succinct as possible. So that way Miliana and Benny can give as succinct and possible responses back. I will call on you. So feel free to just like pop your hand up on Zoom, and I will just go with whoever comes up first. Because I know some questions have gotten a little bit buried in the chat. So you guys have 1 minute to click questions. If there are any questions. Do we have any questions?
So while we wait, if you don't have any questions, if you don't mind, just to add to something Kevin said, I think it's probably the most important summary of all the things we went through many different directions. But the essential thing in my perspective is when you talk about personal brands, you're trying to give people a signal that you are worth being invested in. That's the bottom line. And there's many ways to prove that. You can do it through lots of ways. By the way, you don't need to use LinkedIn necessarily to do that. So the number one thing as an investor that I look at is, especially in early stages, is the character and the integrity. Is this somebody, you know, it's kind of like you go on a date and you have wine and it's fun. Do I want to marry this person? Do I want her to be the mother of my kids? That's a very different question than did I have fun last night? And hopefully the answer is both, right? But the point is, when you are preparing for fundraise, whatever strategy you use, whether you have marketing, no marketing, digital, no digital. The question is, when I meet you, I will have an informed opinion about you from your digital footprint. Now, if you don't have it, I don't have an opinion, or I have an opinion that it's not a good idea, whatever it is. But I have an opinion from you no matter what when I meet you. So your job in that meeting is not just to do what most entrepreneurs do, and I think it's a huge mistake. Just jump into that moment and tell me your big pitch why I should invest in you. I kind of want to know who you are and what you stand for and what your values are. Corporations write on the wall are their values. They are not measured. They are, very generic. Nobody knows how to define what respect or other words there mean. So when you are investing at least personally, if it's deep tech, it's slightly different. I still want to test the team, and I do, and I did a due diligence where the technology was great, and I thought the CEO was terrible, and I exited the discussion. But in general, if you have a good team, the point here is, you pivot, things you work on our work. Like, do I really trust you? So sometimes, we're talking to Kevin earlier on. The due diligence is not only about I need to check. I was an internal auditor at IBM. My first job it was very boring, but like it teaches you a lot of things. And it's like you can check all the boxes. And then I look at this guy. It's like I don't know about the CEO, or I can say, well, I wasn't able to check those three boxes, but what a great person to work with. Maybe we'll build this thing together. So always keep in mind, as Kevin said, like what it is that you have to offer, and sometimes you offer a tremendous product that is profitable and it's kind of a no-brainer, but at that point it's expensive to invest. Or you bring, a lot of passion, a lot of methodology, a lot of, being self-critical, a lot of qualities that not everyone exhibits. And that is a huge plus. That's what your personal brand should stand for, and that's what you should show in a meeting. Everything else is just data points, and in early stage they are good directionally, but they are not any insurance for anyone.
Amazing. I'm going to pop over to the questions now. We have Noel, Anand, and Michelle. Did Noel just leave?
Oh, bummer.
No, I was putting it down. I'm right here.
Oh, okay, perfect. I was like, no, she's disappeared. Noel, go for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This is amazing. Really appreciate you all putting it together. I am a newly exited founder, and I'm curious thank you. I'm curious how you all would recommend framing that while still painting the personal brand of a builder in my new venture. Like any suggestions on that approach?
Again, personally, I think that it's whether you have an exit, whether you work for Google or Microsoft, whatever those things are, it's the past. I actually made a mistake when I left. I overemphasized those things, which are, I think I'm proud of them, but it's past, right? So the point here is you're an accomplished person. In order to be an executive there or in order to do an exit, there's certain things that many people can't do, and you've done. So check the box. We have a good start. That said, let's focus on today and the future. What it is that you're going to do. That you did great things in the past is wonderful. Is this thing, really similar to that? Different times, different business, different moments. You're a different person as well by now, hopefully. And so what it is, take me to your journey now. Again, the past is great, but we are no archaeologists, so it's kind of like great, wonderful, congratulations. I'll ask you a few questions about it. And now, what are you going to do next? Did you become an arrogant person, a lazy person because you had an exit, so you are actually way smarter and more agile and more experienced, so you make less mistakes? So, I am the first investors maybe were a sucker because they got you in a less experienced phase, and now I'm the lucky guy. All those things matter again, just for history. But the whole point is focus on what it is that you're doing now. I mean, that's just context, as we just said. It's important, but then move on.
Can I say something to this point really quick? Number one, wait, what was your name again?
Noel.
Well, number one, congratulations, right?
Thank you.
There's not that many people that can say that. And I'm sure like the road was crazy challenging. I like look back on my past, and I actually never ever say this to anybody, whether it's an investor or like I'm trying to recruit somebody. I used to play in the NFL a long time ago for 3 years, but this is a pretty cool achievement. I worked crazy hard for it. I don't bring it up because it's literally not even relevant in my mind to like starting a company. And when I was a founder and I was a first time founder, I was kind of like, dang, I'm still trying to learn this game. I don't want to just be labeled as a football player that doesn't know what he's talking about. So I never brought it up. When people find out about it, they're always like super intrigued about it. They want to talk about it. And at this point in my career, it is a benefit for sure. but yours is like super relevant. Like to
Mm.
Manny's point, it is yesterday. So like, the founders of Instagram, they launched Artifact a couple years later and it flopped, right? But when you're pitching somebody or when you're just like introducing yourself, the fact that you're an exited founder,
It's a
if
big deal.
I'm an investor, that's a huge positive signal. There's a lot of investors that literally won't even invest in first-time founders. That's like part of their hidden thesis. They want to know that someone's like started multiple companies, had some failures, because starting your first company, you're going to struggle a ton. I would like be super proud of it. I would not wear it on your sleeve and talk about it 24/7 and be arrogant about it, because nobody really likes somebody who's like this, but never suppress that. That's a huge accomplishment. You should be proud of it. And anyone who you talk to, if it gets brought up, that's only going to be a positive signal for whatever you're trying to have happen from that engagement or conversation or moment or partnership or whatever. So that's what I would say to that.
This was so brilliant. You too. I really like what you said, Kevin, because it points what I wanted to add, and that is relevance. How is what you did relevant to what you're doing? Can you connect it and can you build a bridge? How was I ranked by LinkedIn to be one of their voices? I ranked high for change management, and nobody talked about change management openly because it involved unpleasant things like firing people and restructuring. But I was great at storytelling, and I omitted all of the facts related about the Serbian market, what I had the experience. And while working for an American consulting company, figure out that American companies have the exact same problems. So I was like, I'm going to talk about problems and the solutions, and I'm going to build a story. So people who relate to that story are going to comment and be and engage, and it worked. So like for you, it is relevant because I usually don't work with first-time founders, only in out of ordinary circumstances, because first time founder is like raising a baby, and I am at this point of life too lazy for that. So most people are going to say like, okay, so you're not an infant anymore, you went through some battles, you know better. And first time founders are kind of stubborn. I was super stubborn. I wanted to prove everybody wrong. And second time founders are more coachable, so you are sending positive signals about your exit. And all of the other lessons, take a pause. You are now in this new venture. Figure out what are the messages that you are supposed to be sending, and then figure out how can I tie back all of the beautiful resources that I have in the back to where I'm going to serve me get there faster. So
I'm gonna cut you guys off. I'm so sorry. We have two more people to get through for the questions, and I know we're like almost at time. So we're just gonna do like one person per question if that's gonna be okay for the last two. Anand, do you have your question?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you, Sarah. I
Hello,
think
good to see you, my love.
you have been helping me with building a brand, especially in LinkedIn as well, right? So I'm doing that. So my question is in the same lines with regards to Signal, right? So yes, I'm building the brand through various channels, but what role does a strategic advisor and onboarding someone from a strategic advisor play, especially for a pre-revenue early stage startup who has a vision, an MVP ready, and some pilots going on? But what role does a strategic advisor play, and how do you choose a specific strategic advisor, especially from a signal standpoint? Is my question.
Kevin, I
Okay.
think this would be a good one for you.
Yeah, can I say something just about advisors in general? I'll try to talk quick. Early and first time founders over index on their advisor slide. Nobody cares about your advisor slide, I promise you. If you spend a bunch of time on your advisor slide and you have all these like big names and logos, actually, if an investor sees this, usually it's kind of a signal of like of you're a noob, sort of. And one more thing about advisors is it's the founder's job. You don't just give equity to your company to some advisor because he's a influential person in your industry and you think he's going to unlock all these things. I promise you he's not, or she's not. It's your job to detail out the exact expectation. If you're going to be an advisor on my company and I give you a 0.5% or 1/4%, let's agree on exactly how often we're going to communicate, what we're going to be judged on, what your KPIs are, what you're going to basically provide to the company. You, as the founder, have to detail all of this out, because if you don't, what's going to happen? You're going to have this cool, and then don't put your advisor slide on your pitch deck either, but you're going to have this cool advisor group. And I promise you, after 6 months, most of them are going to do nothing. and the relationship is going to get awkward. But it started with you and a failure of leadership to like show exactly what the expectations are and be on the same page. So I would not even think too much about them. But if you do have an advisor, just set out the ground rules of what you're expecting. Make sure that person can live up to those before you do anything.
I love that. That's so
I,
true. Michelle,
I
you
just
wanna...
Thanks for this. This is amazing. Just to echo Kevin's thought on advisors, they're not on my deck, but advisors should be doing work behind the scenes. That's where advisors have their real value. If you're putting them on your deck, then you're using them as a celebrity endorsement, and that shows really clearly. I'm a 3-time founder, so trust me on this one. My question is really quickly. I'm facing an oversaturation question. So everyone's talking about personal brand. You need to stand out. You need to post. You need to make the time, and all of that's true, and all of that's correct. But I'm constantly seeing, I guess the follow-up to all of those really great pieces of advice today is, do you worry about oversaturation? Do you worry about getting your voice lost in what you're actually selling and your company's voice?
I think people literally forget everything literally like after 2 days. So it doesn't even matter. Like it's almost like when you launch your first company, like that launch is probably not going to work. You can just launch again in like 3 weeks, right? It's the same thing with what you're talking about. A post flops or, whatever you're concerned about is happening. Awesome. Something's going to happen in the news. 2 weeks are going to go by. Everyone's going to forget about you. And then you can like start again. So I wouldn't even think about that.
Liliana, you're on mute, babe.
Except if you're making some weird comments that are gonna stay with people and they are gonna forget why they think you're weird, but they think you're weird. There are a couple of people. I'm very non-judgmental and I really don't care because I do this for a living. But a couple of people, I remember when somebody asked me, I say I don't like them. They're like, why? And I'm like, I don't know. And then 3 days ago, I remember, oh yeah, he said that thing. I don't think he has good values. So it's like, but I think you're smart enough as a 3-time founder not to be doing such
Don't be
things.
weird on the internet. Like
Don't be weird on the
people can
internet.
see. Like people
uh,
forget that LinkedIn's a public place and there's some wild comments out there. So,
yeah,
Benny, yeah, go for
just
it.
close 30 seconds. I'm an engineer by degree, but lately I've been studying a lot of psychology and other matters given the state of the world. And my advice to you is like, it's quoted by somebody, I can't remember who it is anymore, but people will forget everything you say, as we said here, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. So,
Mm-hmm.
we're in a rush. We tend to, want to be right, make a point, be assertive, whatever it is that you think is important. As Kevin said, you need to give. What are you giving to this person? Are you giving your best person? And if you're not being polite, and if you're stressed and say, what, I can't have this discussion. How can I call? Whatever it is, people will appreciate who you are as a human being. Like we all can talk to Claude and ask a lot of questions, but like we still can't get somebody to be really human. So somebody popped in here, said she met me in person, and now I honestly forgot her business plan, but I remember how wonderful it was to meet her. We didn't talk about business at all. And we discussed actually being her advisor, and now I have to read the whole business plan. But the point is, as I said, get an advisor that believes in you, that will help you, not just to put a photo there. I reject things. People say, oh, because you're an Azure founding team member, it doesn't matter, it's just a title. So, but again, how you treat people, how you do things or choose not to do things, that's going to last a long, long time. I remember the first startup that I invested, what I realized was a big mistake just because the way the CEO would speak. And he had all the credentials in the world. And I said, I should have invested here. So
I think
I don't remember his PowerPoint deck anymore.
one sentence, and that is, are you targeting AI or people? Because if you're targeting people, it's going to matter how you make them feel. And if you're targeting AI, they can make sense of billions in comments and summarize them and give you exact statement and whatever. So like some companies are actually targeting AI and some founders. And if you're targeting people, like how you made them feel actually carries a lot more weight, especially if you have like 3 potential clients in a market and you can't afford to burn leads. So like all of that goes into your personal brand strategy. But again, if you have like multiple, if again your public is if your focus is person and you post a lot, saying something stupid in 1,000 posts carries a lot more weight, less weight than saying something stupid and it's one of the 3 posts that you ever said. So it's
I love it. Oh, Good job, you guys. Sorry, I've been on a stickler on time today because usually we'll go for another like hour and a half, and we're working on
You
it.
do it.
So, but thank you guys so much for spending your time. It is a Thursday morning, Thursday evening, Thursday afternoon. Might be a Friday for some of you guys. So thank you so much. We will be sending out the recording and some, what's it called? Some key insights and stuff for you in the next 24 hours. So don't be afraid. You can listen to this time and time and time again. Check out our YouTube for our previous workshops, webinars, fireside chats as well. In the meantime, and make sure that you're subscribed to our Luma. Make sure that you are like in contact with us. I've popped both Benny and Miliana's links in the chat. So please, please, please book some time with them. I promise you, even 15 minutes will help you change how you view either your personal brand, your company, your business plan, what's going to be applicable to an investor. So use that time and really, yeah, utilize them. That's what they're here for. Not every day you get to talk to such incredible people. So they're there.
Amazing.
You
Can I
need
say
them.
one thing before I hop off to the
Go for it.
panelists? Thank you for showing up today. And everybody in the audience, thanks for spending an hour and 7 minutes with us. Being a founder is crazy hard. It's lonely. Like I talk about the desert all the time. Benny's been through it. Sasha's been through it. A lot of us have been through it. Milijana's been through it. A lot of people on the call have been through it. We got to be there for each other. These sessions we do once a month, sometimes twice a month. The whole goal is to get questions answered, help more founders win, get unstuck, help you guys and girls realize that you're not alone with some of these struggles. Hopefully in our personal stories, when we share them, we realize, dang, it's hard for everybody. And yeah, in closing from me, thanks for showing up and stay at it and stay encouraged and don't give up. And I think if you don't do that, you have a chance at success.
I love it. And in the email that we will be sending out, we will be popping in our Slack channel that we have. I think I might be a little bit frozen. I just opened up a new tab. We have a Slack channel that we have launched for all of you guys to kind of get involved in and support each other. We'll be popping in with some, little ad hoc things. So if we stay on for 2 seconds, I'm going to pop that in the chat if I can find it. Sorry, Benny, it's only for the learners, only for people. I know you guys can't be in it. Every now and again, we'll be
We are
bringing you
learners
guys
too. We're
in.
always learning.
I know you're like, I want to learn too. I will put it in the email. So make sure everyone, you look at your emails tomorrow and do that, because I need to find that link because I forgot about it. So if I don't see you in there, I will know. I will know. Look at you, Adam. Looking at you, Omer. Looking at you guys. So please make sure that you guys come into it. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be putting a lot more focus and energy on the Slack. Yeah. Big lessons. Please feel free to DM me any big takeaways and stuff as well. I always love hearing those. And we have a few events coming up in June. So make sure, pay attention to that Luma link. And we'll have a lot of events coming up June and July. So some fun projects in the works as well. So thank you guys.